ready to go from Cary, North Carolina for the NWSL on CBS. Dabinia stole the show for North Carolina last week with 2 goals. She and the Courage hosting another Brazilian showstopper, 6-time FIFA World Player of the Year Marta, who leads the Orlando Pride. North Carolina coming off a 4-3 win over Houston in their fall series debut last week. The Orlando Pride finally get to join the party in 2020 after having to miss out on this summer's Challenge Cup. So welcome back, Orlando, and welcome into the show. I'm Jen Hildreth, alongside former U.S. national team midfielder Lori Lindsay. As a welcome back gift, Lori, the Pride get to face the 2-time defending NWSL champs.
And as we saw last week for North Carolina, regardless of formation changes, personnel changes, the one constant differentiator for North Carolina is their winning mentality, and they are led by midfield general Dabinia. She can do it all, make good runs out of the midfield to create chances, find good space to get herself into goal-scoring position, but ultimately she is the driving force that makes this attack tick. And on the other side, Sid LaRue, one of the most dynamic strikers in the NWSL, best known for her goal-scoring ability and being a nuisance to defenders. She's only played 28 minutes, though, in the last 2 years due to the birth of her second child. So the big question coming in today, can she pick up where she left off, which is spearing the Orlando attack?
For more on Sydney LaRue and the Pride, let's bring in Marissa Pilla.
Jen, it has been a long time coming for the Orlando Pride to get back on the field. 343 days to be exact. And it's been even longer for starting forward Sydney LaRue, 742 days since her last start. Head coach Mark Skinner said he knows there's going to be a lot of excitement and a lot of emotion heading into today. But in order for Orlando to be successful, they need to take that excitement in stride and use it to their advantage, not let the emotions take control of their play.
We'll see, Marissa, how it all plays out. Lori here is the starting 11 for Orlando.
And they're in their 4-4-2, anchored by number 11, Allie Krieger in the back line, U.S. International. But all eyes will be on the 2 up top. Number 10, Marta, 6-time FIFA World Player of the Year. And number 2, Sydney LaRue, coming back off of the birth of her child. But for North Carolina, Courage, back in the 3 back, but 4 in their midfield, 6 total. It's going to be about number 27, Addison American, the rookie, anchoring that back line. And then 10, Dabinia, number 9, Lynn Williams. How well can they link up today?
North Carolina unbeaten in their last 20 matches at home, but facing an Orlando Pride team today that is hungry. We'll have the kickoff when we come back.
The North Carolina Courage and the Orlando Pride players stand together in support of diversity, inclusivity, equality, and the fight against systemic racism. Please join us for a 20-second moment of silence as we are all united against racism. Thank you.
The Orlando Pride finally getting their moment to take their stand, to show how they feel, having to withdraw from the Challenge Cup. Now they get a chance to play, Lori. For the first time in 343 days, we get a chance to see the Orlando Pride. Orlando in white, visiting the North Carolina Courage in navy on their home field. All of this a part of the NWSL Fall Series, where all 9 of the NWSL's teams will compete in regionalized pods. So these 2 teams competing in the South Pod, along with the Houston Dash, a team that the North Carolina Courage came back to beat on this field last week, 4-3. North Carolina gets it to Dabinia, had 2 goals, her first career 2-goal game in the NWSL last week.
and not the pass that Dabinia would want there in the end, but already a better start for North Carolina than we saw last Saturday. One thing coming into this game, Jen, that Paul Riley, coach of North Carolina, talked about was keeping better possession, taking care of the ball, something that North Carolina is so accustomed to, but they didn't see in that first half last weekend.
Yeah, talking about Paul and Abby Dahlkemper, U.S. national team defender for the Courage this week. Both felt they played really poorly. They're on the front foot here. A shot by Lauren Millay is high. Some good halftime adjustments, so last week for North Carolina, as they felt they played a much better second half. And Dahlkemper, once again, wearing that captain's armband, something she said means an awful lot to her for the first time in her career in this fall series, wearing that armband.
And that's what's so exciting about this fall series, is giving players, even the experienced players, different roles coming into these games. Obviously, with players that are making their debut, getting important minutes to get adjusted to the NWSL and the physicality and the speed of play.
Orlando gets it back, gets it to Marta. One of the best players to ever play the women's game, the all-time leader in World Cup goals internationally. There's Toni Presley, one of the many wonderful stories that we'll be able to tell you as this match goes on with the Orlando Pride. Paul Riley, the winningest coach in the NWSL, has taken his North Carolina Courage to 3 straight regular season titles and the last 2 NWSL championships. It is quite a contrast when you look at these two teams, and North Carolina, really the budding dynasty, I think many would say, in terms of what they're building, and Orlando trying to get there in their second year under Mark Skinner, team that finished last in the league a year ago, but feeling like they're putting their pieces together in year 2 now that it's finally gotten a chance to get started.
And it was so clear last weekend, Jen, with North Carolina, what makes them so dangerous is just their winning mentality, the fight that they have within their team. So many new faces getting a start last weekend, also new formation change, but still fighting back to beat Houston Dash in the end. And then, as you mentioned it, for the Orlando Pride, 343 days since their last game. So many unknowns, but the good thing coming into this game is just the experience they have on the field. We highlighted Ali Krieger, 2-time World Cup winner in the back line, and then 6-time FIFA World Player of the Year, Marta, up top. Those players, they're going to need them, their experience and just the maturity in today's game to get Orlando settled in.
This is Carrie Lawrence, number 17, a player who signed a short-term contract with Orlando, getting a chance in this fall series with a number of Orlando players, 12 in fact, not with the club as they are on loan. And in conversations with Mark Skinner this week, he told us he absolutely felt like in the long term, this is really what the club needs. He wanted players to go get more games and to go take that opportunity to go overseas and do that. And then that's going to help when they get back in 2021 to get this Orlando Pride team where they want to be in NWSL. Lynn Williams, the lone Courage player, waiting up top. Now Dabinia has it in the middle. Ryan Williams got the cross only as far as that near post. It'll go out for a Courage throw.
And it's that area in the midfield that I'm most curious about today. Dabinia and Lauren Millay, the 2 attacking midfielders for North Carolina, picking the ball up right in front of the Orlando Pride defense and running at that back line. Something that the Orlando Pride need to be aware of. 2 dynamic players coming out of the midfield. They have numbers overload, numbers up situation. Big question mark is how will the Pride be able to deal with those players?
Mentioned Lauren Millay a few moments ago. Marissa, you can add some more.
Jen, North Carolina midfielder Lauren Millay told me that during quarantine, she spent so much time with Dabinia training, and they got to get to know each other a lot better. And she said because they were both very similar in stature, she's very easily able to emulate what Dabinia does on the ball. And she said being able to watch Dabinia up close has helped her recognize space better during the games and how to break away from defenders. Millay said it's been tremendous to learn from Dabinia and is grateful to have her as a resource on this team.
Paul Riley even went so far as to call Millay the American Dabinia. I mean, that's a little bit of pressure to put on a 23-year-old.
Well, if I could be Dabinia's teammate, I would too. No better role model than to play with Dabinia and what she's done for this club. Arguably one of the best players in NWSL the last 2 seasons. And Millay, young, bright star, showing some characteristics that we don't typically see in some of the American players, her ability to get out of pressure easily, just the craftiness that she shows in front of the goal, wiggle her way in and out of tight spaces. Great partnership that's starting to develop with her and Dabinia.
Ball into the box for Orlando. This is Lawrence, who'll step onto it, brings it down nicely. She's gonna get it back. Lawrence goes across the face of the goal and out for a goal kick.
And some really positive play for Orlando, brave in possession, looking to exploit some gaps. They knew coming into this game with North Carolina only playing 3 center backs that they could find space out wide. Lawrence doing a good job of getting higher up the field, creating a little 1-2. At the end, that's either got to be whipped across the box or it's got to be on frame to Tesla Bay. But good start for a team that's had such a layoff.
Dabinia coming back to pick up the ball. Paul Riley saying Dabinia always making herself available for the ball. He was not pleased with her decision-making, said she had a terrible first half a week ago, but obviously turned it on with 2 goals in the second half.
And in the same sentence, though, he said, Dabinia does want the ball all the time, so it was a bright spot for us. At least she wanted the ball and kept possession.
Yeah, because he was saying that with some of these new players, North Carolina also without many key players, either due to opting out or being on loan or injured, he said some of these players were hiding in the first half, a little hesitant, didn't want to make a mistake. Not Dabinia. She did make some mistakes, but at least she was coming to get the ball.
And that's what separates her, Jen, just her willingness to find spaces, always looking for dangerous opportunities, even if it's not always coming off. It's a player that opposing teams have to keep an eye on with all of her characteristics and the personality she has on the field.
This one of the new wrinkles in this new formation for North Carolina. That was Abby Dahlkemper getting up into the attack for the Courage. This is something they didn't get to experiment much with last week because Addison Merrick had an injury that changed things. Dabinia gets it forward, but the offside flag goes up. Beautiful setup, though, between Dabinia and Millay, that partnership we were talking about.
And the 2 of these players, the ability to link up, it's Dabinia getting in between those spaces, in between the back line and midfield line for Orlando. And you can see Millay just a hair offside, but that's a beautiful first touch to set herself up for an opportunity on goal. And it's those runs out of the midfield that make it so difficult for opposing teams' defenses to pick up.
Header from LaRue to Marta. Those 2 relishing the chance to be able to finally play together. As Marissa told us, 2 years since the last start for Sydney LaRue, just a handful of minutes when she was able to come back toward the end of last year after the birth of her 2nd child. And that foul on Kristen Edmonds will get a yellow card for Carrie Recaro and set up a free kick for Orlando.
And a tough 50-50 challenge. Recaro just steps, catches Edmonds' ankle.
Steph Labbe, the Canadian national team goalkeeper, has faced Marta both internationally and in the NWSL. Marta not going to use that left foot to strike it herself. Gets it over to Lawrence. The cross is punched by Labbe. That will set up a corner kick for the Pride.
And good idea from the Pride to play short, see if they can pull out the North Carolina defense, unbalance them. First time cross for Lawrence, forces LeBay to come out and make the save.
Lawrence, a 23-year-old out of Orlando, Florida, making her NWSL debut today. Played at University of Central Florida, as well as South Carolina in her collegiate career. And you could hear the defense had that covered. Nobody there to get on that ball that bent out of bounds. It's been quite a difference in terms of preparation and experience. North Carolina getting that opportunity to play in the Challenge Cup, the month-long tournament that the NWSL staged in Utah this summer. Orlando, Lori, having to withdraw from that tournament just 5 days before they were scheduled to play their first match due to positive COVID-19 cases and test results on their team. Ryan Williams, like she got the deflection there, and we'll get the corner for North Carolina.
And right now, the Orlando Pride need to do a better job of staying compact defensively. Too much time and space for that block of 4 for North Carolina in the midfield. The back line for Orlando Pride dropping. If that's the case, the midfielders have to drop with them. Otherwise, it frees up the likes of Dabinia and Malay.
Abby Dahlkemper, a 3-time NWSL Best 11 selection, kept that ball really low. Marta on the breakout. Nice move from Malay. Cuts it back. Gets it all the way through to Lynn Williams, a former Golden Boot winner in the NWSL. Led the league in scoring back in 2016 as a member of the Western New York Flash. Kevin Bradley, our referee. No whistle needed in his opinion on that play. If you think about for Orlando, you talk about that great experience with a player like Ali Krieger on the ball here, Tony Presley. That's your experience in the middle of the defense. Obviously, Ashton Harris, U.S. national team backup goalkeeper in goal. But on the outside, here's Courtney Peterson, the rookie out of the University of Virginia on the left. And then Carrie Lawrence, first-year NWSL player on the right. Lawrence, though, been given some free rein.
She's done well, Lawrence, to get up down the right-hand side, be able to provide another outlet for Orlando Pride. So much room in that midfield that we talked about. It's a little bit predictable, but they're doing a good job of keeping possession, staying patient once they do win the ball.
This is Jordan Listro, another one of those new short-term players, finding Marta right along the end line, and North Carolina not taking any chances. Haley Kurtz with the clearance.
And well done by the Orlando Pride. Something that they're going to need to do is keep possession to be able to manage this game. Such a layoff. You imagine fitness will come into play. Good little combination play to spring Marta out of the midfield with that through ball to force North Carolina to put it out for a corner kick.
And interesting, Lori, Marta not taking this corner. That left foot usually is so wicked when she's able to swing it in from the corner flag, but instead she's out there as an option. Be Peterson, naturally left-footed player to take it. Marta does chase it down, a veteran of 5 World Cups, 4 Olympics for Brazil, the 34-year-old. Wonder what type of magic she will be able to make. There always seems to be something there for Marta when she takes the field.
Including the lipstick that we always
Yes.
see, which I'm a huge fan of.
No service! No corner!
North Carolina trying to trap the Pride. And the trap does its job, takes it away. Recaro trying to get through a lot of numbers. Instead, it is a turnover.
No goal! Left shoulder Eddie, one back right on! Good night.
Marta
Carry double!
lost it, didn't like it. Maybe a bit of frustration there. from the veteran.
One of the advantages of not having fans, though, is that we can hear more of what's going out in the field, and you can hear the leadership for North Carolina. Stay patient, double on defense, don't let Orlando out once they lose the ball. You get a little bit of the insight that's happening on the field and who's stepping out as a vocal leader.
Malay wants to set up the speedy Lynn Williams. Ashlyn Harris is well aware of her speed, but now Harris, the goalkeeper, laid out. And that's why you have your defense backing you up if you're the goalkeeper. Dicey moment.
Well read by Ashlyn Harris, though, to come off her line. Lynn Williams so dangerous with her runs in behind the back line for Orlando. Ashlyn Harris trying to play that one first time. Gets caught under their foot, but it was also actually a pretty good trap for Allie Krieger.
Ashlyn Harris, Allie Krieger, one of the power couples in sports, I think it's fair to say, Lori. Those two getting married at the end of last year, and gosh, they've been everywhere in Vogue. I mean, they're just wonderful spokeswomen for the sport, and I think are two real positives, both in the NWSL and internationally.
Absolutely, and I loved your question about what they're doing with all those photo shoots and the cover, and Allie Krieger told us Ashlyn snuck a photo book on their coffee table without her knowing.
Oh yeah, one of those magazine covers? Come on, oh, look at them. I mean, that's style goals right there.
Very much so. Very much
but
so.
Yeah, you were there, right? You got to take in this wedding in person, and a really wonderful event. And we all need some positive things to lift us up and light us up right now. And I think these two just consistently have done that. Third corner kick of this first half for North Carolina. Play it back to Dahlkemper. Everybody trying to hustle back onside. Marta. Here is Allie Krieger.
And Jen, coming into this game, last week we saw North Carolina try the new formation with three in the back. But for today's game, they opted to go with the block in the midfield, the four, something that they're accustomed to, which leaves Lynn Williams as the only lone striker, which is giving them a different look in terms of pressing because she's the only one up top. They can't get enough pressure, and it's easy right now for Orlando to be able to play one pass, switch the point of attack, and get out. Got to make sure they go tight as a unit.
Ryan Williams. Dabinia lurking just behind the defense. And Lawrence was able to get there first. Malay. Saw Meredith Speck out wide. And that ball will go out, and the Courage will get to try a corner on this side. Actually, does not look like that is the call. Initially, that seemed to be the way the ball rolled, but Ashlyn Harris is going to take this.
Oh, and they're looking as if it ricocheted off of Speck. Once it was cleared, Carrie Lawrence does a good job, but then right there, it does bounce off of Speck.
Oh, good eyes by our referee crew. Lawrence was signed in January by the Pride, but wound up being waived before the Challenge Cup, and then of course the Pride not getting to participate in that tournament anyway, so she was brought back in with some of the players who are on loan. Alex Morgan, the most recent big name player, joined Tottenham in the FA Women's Super League in England. Dabinia made that touch look way too easy. Gets it to Lynn Williams. Ryan Williams working the angle. Now it will be a corner for the Courage.
And Orlando Pride doing a good job of getting numbers behind the ball quickly, making it difficult for North Carolina, forcing them to go wide, take on 1v1. It's overloading the numbers in the box. Now the evolution for Orlando, once they win it, can they go quickly or just keep possession and break the first line of pressure?
Dahlkemper delivers. Debinha wincing actually after that attempt. Debinha, the NWSL Championship MVP last year for the Courage in a season in which she had 8 goals, 7 assists, has 85 appearances internationally with Brazil. Addison Merrick chasing that ball down. The rookie defender out of Kansas plays it back to LeBay. A lot of space over there for Speck. Back it goes toward the penalty spot. Dahlkemper will take her chances.
And it's got to be better for North Carolina in the end product. They do such a good job to start this initial play by getting out wide and then switching the point of attack, utilizing the width, pulling Orlando out.
And Addison Merrick, part of that defense, working the ball up the field for North Carolina, and a player who had to leave the match in the 9th minute last week, had a big collision against the Houston Dash. Veronica Latsko coming in and the two of them colliding, and it wound up with stitches for Merrick, and she left the match. And that really changed things for North Carolina when she had to leave that back three. This was a collision.
Well, and Jen, not only were they trying a new formation with the 3 back, but they were also having to shift. Once she went out, they had to shift around. And Paul Riley talked about her being a big loss in terms of the athleticism, her ability to defend 1v1. So they're happy to get her back for today's game, especially going up against the likes of Sid LaRue and Marta up top.
Love that angle here. And Debinha bends it, but right into the outstretched leg of Allie Krieger. Kristen Edmonds, a 5th-year Orlando Pride player, the all-time leader in minutes played and starts for the expansion club. Orlando joining the NWSL in 2016.
And smart play by Kristen Edmonds, realizing that she doesn't have a ton of support, just gets her body between the ball and the player, forces North Carolina to foul her. Now it allows Orlando to get more in advanced positions in a somewhat of a dangerous free kick.
Perhaps now we'll see what that left foot of Marta can produce. It goes toward goal, headed up by LaRue, but into the gloves of LeBay. Marissa Pilla on the sideline. Marissa, what are you hearing from the Orlando side of things?
Jen, Lori just mentioned how much space North Carolina has on the flanks in the attack, and that's exactly what Orlando wants. I just spoke to assistant coach Carl Green for the Pride, and he said on defense, they want to keep a narrow shape and force North Carolina out wide. Furthermore, they want to make sure that they are putting a lot of pressure on North Carolina's number 10, Debinha, not only 1v1, but also the spaces she occupies in between the lines.
And that's something that Mark Skinner talked to us about, allowing them to have that width and then make sure that they're marked up in the box when they do serve crosses in. still feel like Dabinia, with the goals that she scored last weekend, has too much time and space in between that midfield and back line. So if they can drop those players back or even step up their back line quicker, they'll have more success in getting pressure on the ball and not allowing her to turn and face. And Jim, when we think about managing this game and Orlando not having played a game in close to a year, they've got to pick and choose their times, when they're going to press, when they're going to stay back, and then be able to keep the ball, manage the load, manage their legs throughout this 90 minutes.
This is a series that has been dominated by the Courage. They lead it 7-2-0. They've won 6 in a row. And in that stretch have outscored Orlando 24-4.
And this is a great example, Jen, too much time and space. Yes, you have numbers behind the ball, but can you step up your line? You only have one forward in Lynn Williams.
Abby Alinsky, third-year Orlando Pride player, up to LaRue. LaRue taken down.
Some of these fouls, Jen, are so unnecessary for North Carolina. Orlando only having one player up at most of the time, with numerical advantage for North Carolina. Just get numbers on the ball, get pressure, see if you can force them to play back and then step up your line. Instead, you give away a dangerous free kick. Orlando has to take better advantage of these opportunities.
Krieger with the delivery. The header to the near post and snagged by LeBay.
Good opportunity at the end. It looks like it's Sid LaRue that times her jump perfectly, able to get her momentum, snap it back, and on frame. Easy for LeBay in the end. That's the type of delivery and opportunity on goal that you want.
Couple of times now, some passing in the back, enough to make you a bit nervous if you're Mark Skinner in Orlando, and that's even with veteran Ashlyn Harris back there. Well, they get out of it this time, but you have to be careful. That is the last place you want to make a mistake. Dabinia turns. You know she can pull a quick trigger on that shot. This time she tries to set up Williams. Another corner coming for the Courage.
And I love the bravery for the Orlando Pride to play out of the back, but if it's going to put yourself in a position for North Carolina to get an opportunity on goal, you've got to be careful and pick and choose your times. Easy turnover in the end. And North Carolina now getting a corner kick.
Del Kemper will try it from this side. 2017 NWSL Defender of the Year, World Cup champion with the U.S. Orlando won the first ball, second back to North Carolina, but Williams hits it out. Lynn Williams, one of the all-time leading goal scorers in this league, 50 goals in her NWSL career. That is second all-time. And just on a statistical note, this fall series will stand alone in terms of career statistics, as did the NWSL Challenge Cup. So they will all collect whatever statistics they get here, and Lynn Williams with a goal and an assist in the first game. That will not count toward those NWSL career numbers. Del Kemper said she was embracing this opportunity, was excited for the chance to add a new layer to her game, to get forward into the attack more. Marissa Vigiano, an important player in the midfield for Orlando. Malay comes back for it. Out to Ryan Williams. Edmonds coming back to help defensively, but Ryan Williams gets it back, earns another corner. And typically, corner kicks a part of the DNA of what you expect from a North Carolina team. They press you, they get in the attack. Haven't provided anything extremely dangerous yet in their opportunities so far. And it looks like planning something a bit different here. Malay playing it short. Vigiano lifts her head. Saw some space out wide and goes there.
This has been the issue for Orlando the entire first half. They do a good job defensively, getting numbers, staying disciplined, but when they look to break out, North Carolina doing a good job of getting numbers behind the ball quickly, and there's nowhere to go, so they're forced to play back. It allows North Carolina to get their press on again.
Confident move there from Carrie Lawrence. Listro. Merrick onto it, but gives it away. Recovered quickly to get back. Orlando keeping it alive in this attacking part of the field. That's what you used to see from Sydney LaRue.
And she can get herself into good positions. Miscommunication by Pereira. And Merrick for North Carolina allows this ball to be served in for Sid LaRue. Just throws her body at it. Well done, but can't keep it on frame. Best chance for Orlando so far.
We are in our first hydration break. We'll have one in each half of every game of the NWSL Fall Series. Reminder that you can stream CBS Sports HQ, the completely free and always-on sports news network for highlights, breaking news, and expert picks. Download the CBS Sports app on your phone or connected TV to watch today. Mention this NWSL Fall Series, all teams playing for the Verizon Community Shield, where the winner gets a chance to get a grant provided by Verizon to a community partner. And Marissa has more on what that looks like for North Carolina, should they get it.
That's right, Jen. North Carolina has partnered with local coffee shop 321 Coffee. It's a nonprofit that hires and occupies all individuals with mental and physical disabilities. It's really a wonderful place. I had the opportunity to go visit it this morning, and Noah took my order. Lainey made my drink, and it was such a wonderful place to visit. And what started as a pop-up shop by 4 NC State students now has their own shop at a farmer's market in town. It's really a wonderful place, and North Carolina midfielder Carrie Roccaro actually served as a celebrity barista there a couple months ago, and she said as soon as you walk into the place, there's such a sense of warmth and welcoming, and you can tell how much confidence this job gives these individuals, and it really was a wonderful place to visit and a great place for a cup of coffee.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Marissa. I'm glad you got to go experience and get your coffee cup out there with you. What a wonderful initiative.
Powered by 321.
Back in action we go now from Salem Stadium at WakeMed Soccer Park in Cary, North Carolina. Our NWSL game of the week on CBS. And another yellow card handed out. This time it'll go against the Orlando Pride as Dabinia goes down. Jordan Listro picking up that yellow.
Tough challenge by Jordan Listro. Just comes in late to Dabinia's.
Pride yellow card in the 35th minute of play to number 19, Jordan Listro.
Listro, a native of Toronto, Canada, has some U17 World Cup experience with Canada. She played collegiately at University of South Florida, finishing her career there in 2016. One of the short-term contract players signed for this fall series for Orlando. Malay.
And Jen, it's those moments right there where North Carolina could take a step forward in their evolution with some of these younger, inexperienced players on the field. Just being more patient. If if Orlando is getting numbers behind the ball, then you have to be patient. with your possession, switch the point of attack, even if it's more than once, to see if you can unbalance Orlando's defense that is sitting back in that low block. And right now, everything's too rushed. Final pass too heavy. You just take care of the ball, calm yourself down. And that's when Lynn Williams, Dabinia, those players that have the experience need to take the initiative to settle everybody else around in that final third.
Ryan Williams put that ball right where Orlando expected it to be. Pride with the takeaway. But Recaro does not allow Vigiano to get anywhere with it. Dabinia, what a touch forward to Lynn Williams. Williams, touch out to Ryan Williams and into the gloves of Harris. Ashlyn Harris won 3 NCAA championships, not far from here at the University of North Carolina. Went through a career that saw her with 2 ACL tears, but 1 more national championship ring than ACL tears. What an incredible tale of perseverance for Ashlyn Harris, and then so long seeing her as a part of the U.S. national team. It's not easy to be a backup goalkeeper either. That says you got to always be ready, and you don't get an awful lot of opportunities.
And we just saw her personality. What makes her such a good goalkeeper is we've got to continue to push the pace, be brave in their possession, confident. Exactly what you need from an Orlando team that's had such a massive layoff in terms of games, vocal leadership.
Speck kept it alive for Merrick. Addison Merrick trying to set up centrally for North Carolina. Now back to Speck, who's already played more minutes in the first game of this fall series than she has in her career. Players getting opportunities. That is one of the, I think, really exciting things about this fall series in the NWSL, because it is not easy to break into this league. There was a great story on Equalizer Soccer about Riley Basin, who came off the bench, had an assist last week for the Courage, about just how tough it is to get a chance to get in this league. This is that chance for a lot of players.
And one of those players right there, Lauren Millay, that we've talked about, making an impact. Her partnership with Dabinia typically is playing behind Crystal Dunn and Dabinia. How difficult it is to get into this North Carolina lineup. And it just allows these players to be able to get the opportunity, as you mentioned, Jen, but then they have to take it. With the expansion draft coming up, there's going to be opportunities for players to make a statement. And more opportunities in terms of roster spots.
Racing Louisville FC set to join the NWSL next year. Angel City FC out in LA ready to come into the NWSL in 2022. A lot of excitement around both of those expansion clubs. Vigiano kept it on the ground. Not a good clearance though from Kurtz, and in fact it does not get very clear. Now out of bounds for an Orlando throw. Ball on the ground, and LaBay clearly calling for it.
And you could feel right now the energy of the game has died down. First 15 minutes or so, a bit back and forth. Both teams keeping possession at times. But now for a team like North Carolina that's played more games, confident in their play with the winning mentality, know they can score goals with the likes of Dabinia, Lynn Williams, they've got to find a way to push the pace.
Dahlkemper drives it centrally. Marta, boy, she's been back deep a number of times to come pick up the ball.
And that's the toughest part about playing against North Carolina, Jen. You have to defend with so many numbers, because even if they lose it, they'll repress you. You have to find numbers around the ball to break their pressure. But the last place you want Marta is right outside your own defensive 18. They have no outlet.
Talked about Toni Presley earlier in this match, Lori, and what a incredible story she is of motivation. Last year, being diagnosed with breast cancer, and she announced that over the summer, had to take time off to be treated for that, and then actually came back in the last match of the season for the Orlando Pride. And Mark Skinner talked about just her quiet confidence and what a true leader and unsung hero she really is for this Orlando team. Right now, Presley going to have to defend, and we'll see what Dahlkemper serves up for North Carolina. It is flicked over toward Dabinia, bending, not quite enough though.
And wow, was that close, and it was almost identical to one of the goals that we saw last weekend against the Houston Dash. This time gets the ball out in front of her with a first touch and just looks to bend it far post. Well done by Carrie Lawrence to shut it down, at least force that to go wide, because otherwise that would have been in the back of the net. We've seen Dabinia do that time and time again.
I mean, Lori, Dabinia's first touch just set that on a platter for her, and I think she's so quick from the transition from that touch to getting a shot off too.
She can beat you in so many different ways on the dribble, setting herself up with the first touch, setting others up with quick 1-2s. Goes back to what we've been saying, just really the driving force of this attack for North Carolina, no matter who's playing.
Peyton Perea had the ball taken off her foot. She went down. North Carolina still has it. Perea getting her first start in this match today. Perea, 23 years old, former Wake Forest Demon Deacon, was with North Carolina last year as a national team replacement player. Each team in the NWSL allowed to sign more players to short-term deals, while some of their international players may be away at something like, oh, I don't know, the World Cup last year, for example. But Perea never getting a chance to see the field last year, getting that opportunity now in the fall series. Recaro stepped into that one, takes her shot. Carrie Recaro in her third year with the Courage, but has been around in this league, was a former top 5 pick in 2016 by the Houston Dash. Speaking of Houston, we will have the highlights. Houston, the Challenge Cup champions over the summer, and they took on North Carolina last week. You do not want to miss the 7 goals that occurred in that. We'll show you most of them. That's coming up at halftime. Also take a look back at one of our other matches with a stoppage time winner, Washington and Chicago. That'll give you a little taste also of what's to come on CBS next week when we get to see the rematch between those two teams. Merrick. Perea. Williams lifts her head, lofts it across. Lawrence stayed calm, did not let Dabinia flashing into her peripheral vision throw her off. LaRue has had a few looks with her head in particular in this first half for Orlando.
And a bit disjointed, though, in the attack for the Orlando Pride, but not unexpected, given their layoff, given the personnel changes that they've had to add to their roster. Some good moments in terms of possession and being patient, but now can they add something to that to get Sid LaRue, to get Marta more involved in the game, especially once they break that first line of pressure from North Carolina.
Yeah, I thought something interesting that Paul Riley said to us this week, head coach of North Carolina. He was saying that with all of these different players, and he has a bunch, Orlando has a bunch, Sometimes you really just need one or two to be on and click at the right moment. He felt he had Dabini and Lynn Williams do that. That helped get them that 4-3 win last week against Houston. And he said, absolutely, you look at Sydney Leroux and Marta. If those two just have a moment to click, that could be enough.
Absolutely, and really what it comes down to, Jen, is just getting them more touches on the ball. We know Marta likes to come back, set play as well. But the more that the two of those players can get on the ball, start running at the back line for North Carolina, the better for Orlando.
Almost through our first minute of 2 minimum allotted stoppage time at the end of this first half. Dahlkemper serves it up again. Can she find a target? The Courage have not done so yet.
And that's something I would have to imagine that Paul Riley will address, knowing that Orlando hasn't played games. Can they continue to push the pace, be more clinical in the final third? They're getting that space out wide, but the balls that they're serving in just aren't dangerous enough. In that last play, we see there's 4 players back for Orlando, and really only 1 player for North Carolina making some sort of dynamic run in the box. It's got to be more. They've got to commit more numbers to try to create even more chances.
Paul Riley said he got after his team at halftime last week. Curious what the vibe in the North Carolina locker room will be this time around, as it looks like we will be locked with those zeros on the scoreboard when the whistle sounds.
And what I love about that from Paul Riley, though, is the expectations across the board are the same. So regardless of who you're playing, even if you're young, he still has high hopes for these players and wants them to succeed. So keeps the standard high.
Oh, that's exactly what you were talking about. The start of this match was that winning culture of North Carolina. Dabini has become a very big part of that in her time in this league, her 4th year with the Courage and NWSL. So 0-0 at the half between North Carolina and Orlando. It's typically a high-scoring affair between these two teams, but nobody so far today. Lauren Millay has had some looks for North Carolina as she is with Marissa.
Lauren, your team outshot Orlando 6-3 in that first half, but only 1 shot was on goal. How do you start to connect more in the final third?
Yeah, I think we just need to slow down and find people that are obviously open. I think we're trying to overshoot or playing the difficult ball. I think there's a lot of simpler passes that are on, so I think just connecting within the box is the best bet.
Thanks for your time, Lauren.
Have a good one.
Keep it simple. Always good advice. Well, we told you some big-time highlights coming up from NWSL Fall Series games. That's coming your way at halftime. You don't want to miss that. 0-0 our score so far from Cary. Welcome to Cary, North Carolina halftime between the North Carolina Courage and the Orlando Pride. The NWSL Fall Series getting underway a couple of weeks ago. And in the first 3 matches of this series, Lori Lindsay, we had 2 stoppage time winners. One of them would come in this game between Chicago and Washington.
And Chicago would get off on the front foot quickly with Kalia Watt serving a good ball in for Sarah Lubert in the first time finish.
First career NWSL goal for Lubert.
And then it'd be the Washington Spirit working their way in. Decent ball in from Dorian Bailey, sit into Bailey Fights. Good first time touch to get the ball out from underneath her and then just roofs it to the top netting.
Here we go, stoppage time, little drama.
And then Crystal Thomas would work her magic, and this would be the game winner for Scarpa, her first professional goal.
All right, take a breath for this one. We had 7 goals in this one. You won't see quite all of them here. This was our game last week, and the first one coming from the penalty spot.
And it would become from their midfield general, Dabini, working her magic, and then Abby Dahlkemper stepping up to the spot, making no mistakes about it.
Now, Houston would have scored once already to tie it, but then Christy Mewis putting the dash out in front.
First time finish, excellent by the left footer. But then Dabini once again through the legs of Andrzejewski just fires that upper 90. What a phenomenal finish, making SportsCenter during the week.
Big time goal for Dabini. She would not be done, but Houston still had some more to say.
And a long ball by Kristen Mewis getting into the mix, does well from Stengel to hold it up, and then Schmidt making the run off of that for the first time finish into the far post.
Then for North Carolina, Riley Baisden just come into the match a few minutes ago. She found Lynn Williams.
She did so well to adjust her run to be able to hit it first time. And then Dabinia once again, and this is not an easy finish to be able to adjust her feet, hit it first time, bending it around. Houston's goalkeeper Campbell.
4-3 in a comeback victory for the North Carolina Courage last week. We'll look back on our first half from this week between North Carolina and Orlando when we return. We got a Sydney LaRue header attempt maybe in there somewhere? Yeah. Okay, so. Well, what had just happened? Wait. Okay. Well, so who was this? This is Orlando trying?
Yeah, who serves this ball in? Who is that?
That is Listro.
Okay, Listro just poor clearance from North Carolina. Ball served into. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, bend it like the Dabinia. A little more. Dip like the Dabinia.
That is good pressure by Lawrence to at least throw it off.
Why not dip? You dip. Okay, and then we can just be
And
quick.
it's just
Are
those
we
two opportunities.
on camera? Let's see. I might say, where are the biggest areas of growth for both teams in the second half? Does that give you enough time to do that if I get it too quickly there?
Yeah, because I think for what it is for North Carolina, being more clinical, patient in the final third, and then for Orlando, can they play more?
Okay.
I will say.
Hey, so Sharni? No, I was just saying if you could just make sure, if we can, I know we got to move, but if Lori can have a chance to finish her point on both teams before the highlights roll.
Are we in the box? Are we in the box? Stop worrying about what I'm up to.
You're breaking up on me all of a sudden. Are you getting that too? Like, it sounded like digital hits.
Oh, no.
Yeah? For now. It's
no.
weird.
Electronics for Jen.
Okay. Kick off when we come back.
Hello, friends at home.
Okay, Jim Nance. Tomorrow, it's an NFL on CBS doubleheader with some of the game's biggest stars taking center stage. The early action is highlighted by Saquon's Giants taking on the Bears, while the Broncos battle Big Ben's Steelers. That's followed by Mahomes and the Chiefs challenging the Chargers, or Jackson and the Ravens versus Watson's Texans. It all starts tomorrow at noon Eastern with the NFL Today on CBS. Scoreless first half for us so far from Cary, North Carolina, between the North Carolina Courage and the Orlando Pride in this matchup in the South Pod of the NWSL Fall Series. Jen Hildreth alongside former U.S. national teamer Lori Lindsay. Lori, what do you look at as the biggest area of growth maybe for these two teams as we head toward the second half?
Well, for North Carolina, you're finding yourself in good positions. Now can you take it a step further, be more patient in the attack, be more clinical with a service into the box? And then for Orlando, good in possession, but now can you make more advanced possession and get into better positions around the goal?
Take a look back at a couple of highlights from the first half. Orlando with this opportunity for Sydney LaRue.
And it was an easy giveaway for North Carolina that led to this service to Sydney LaRue. The best opportunity on goal for Orlando coming from their main striker, Sydney LaRue.
Dabinia, we said at the beginning, was the star for North Carolina a week ago. She bends this one, Lori, just not quite enough.
And was this close enough? But credit to defender Carrie Lawrence to shut this down, to force this just to go wide, because that was going to be in the back of the net if Dabinia was able to get a little bit more spin on it.
So a couple of near misses. North Carolina out shooting Orlando 6-3 in that first half. Last week, the Courage coming alive in the second half. That's something they did throughout the Challenge Cup as well. Second half action coming your way. Will we get a goal? We had 7 last week. Stick around to find out. Plenty of NWSL action coming your way in the fall series. You get a look at a couple of games coming up tomorrow, and then we're going to get a chance to see that Chicago-Washington rematch next Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern time. That'll be our game on CBS. A couple teams that have yet to play. Utah Royals FC getting into action tomorrow, and then OL Reign seeing their first action, that one coming up next week after OL Reign and Portland have had their game rescheduled twice due to hazardous air conditions in the Portland area due to those devastating wildfires. Little overcast, but otherwise nice day. And carry North Carolina for this matchup today. Dabinia and the North Carolina Courage standing over the ball, ready to go for the second half. North Carolina in their home navy blue uniforms, the Orlando Pride, in their first action of 2020 wearing all white. Courtney Peterson gave it away with that pass. Lynn Williams held mostly in check in that first half by the Orlando defense. Ryan Williams got herself free in the middle, wants to give it up for Dabinia. And Carrie Lawrence, first time getting NWSL minutes, and she's going toe-to-toe with Dabinia. That's not too shabby.
And she's done well. We saw her close down the angle for Dabinia on that opportunity late in that first half. That sent the shot wide for Dabinia, but also now just tracking, doing what needed to keep any opportunities out of the back of the net.
Ashlyn Harris readying her defense for this first corner kick of the second half. It goes to Dabinia. A little too excited for that one, maybe.
And she'll want that one back. That was put on a platter for her, found its way through her. She timed her run perfectly, but then just swung and got too much under it. You could see the big swing. All she needs to do is just punch at it to keep it low and hard on frame.
Dabinia, part of the Brazilian master class that could take place in this match, with Dabinia playing for the Courage and one of the greatest all time in the women's game, Marta, on the front line for the Pride. Can Orlando get it to their front line? Can they find Marta? Can they find Sydney Leroux in dangerous places? That was a challenge in the first half, wasn't it?
And that's a big question mark coming in to this half, Jen. Doing such a good job of keeping possession, but it wasn't going anywhere. They weren't breaking lines for North Carolina. Now can they get more positive possession to find Sid Leroux and Marta earlier to get running at the back line and expose those spaces out wide?
Abby Dahlkemper, U.S. national team defender, former NWSL Defender of the Year, 3-time Best 11 selection in this league. Rarely leaves the field for the Courage. Kaylee Kurtz, a player getting some more minutes in this fall series in the back. Regular captain Abby Urseg opting out of this fall series.
Good step by U.S. international Allie Krieger on that last play. Good look from Abby Dahlkemper to try to find the second runner in Lynn Williams. Allie Krieger stepping up and denying any opportunity.
Lori, we've talked about this Orlando attack and what they need to do. Marissa, you had a chance to talk to the Orlando coaching staff at halftime.
When I asked Orlando head coach Mark Skinner his thoughts on the first half, he laughed. He said, well, considering we haven't played in a while, he's really pleased with the commitment and the effort his team showed. But in the second half, he wants Orlando to take this game in chunks, with this first chunk being from now until the first hydration break. He said during that time, his team needs to focus on two things. One, fixing their press. They're allowing North Carolina to come inside a little bit too much. And two, on offense, being more composed in the final third.
And being more composed, Jen, is exactly what we were talking about. Once they win the ball, can they find those front runners early and they get runs off of them underneath or even out wide? But it starts with the pressure on the ball, not dropping too low.
Turnover, Dabinia charging forward for the Courage. Meredith Speck. Across, headed down by Malay. Nobody running onto it, though.
I do appreciate Mark Skinner, Orlando coach's comment, though, since we haven't played in a while.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, I imagine, as these coaches come into this fall series and they say, all right, look, we realize this is not our full contingent of players. Both of these teams, as we mentioned, a dozen players not with the team who you normally would expect to see there, and should expect to see all of those back in 2021. So in some senses, you do have a little bit lowered expectations, but then in another sense, you come out with a will to come out of this with a win and be as competitive as you can be. For North Carolina, maintaining the standard they've set, and for Orlando, building in this second year and trying to get up from the basement of the NWSL where they finished in 2019.
And I like the idea of the Orlando team taking this game in chunks, knowing that they do have to manage games in different ways, and you can almost have markers of performance throughout this game. And so far defensively, they have been strong, and it's really nullified the attack for North Carolina. We can see right here the misplaced passes, the force turnovers quickly. That really has to do with Orlando's discipline and the condensing of the field centrally.
The NWSL Fall Series, the second iteration of play for the National Women's Soccer League in 2020, after everything got blown up in the spring due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The NWSL, the first professional team sports league in the U.S. to come back with the Challenge Cup, and they made it through that tournament in Utah with 0 positive cases of COVID-19. Players tested while they were out in that bubble in Utah. Now we get a chance to see the league in action in the fall series, where we don't have the bubble, but we do have the regionalized pods. 3 teams in each region. They'll each play the other 2 in their pod twice, so 4 games total for each team.
Here, we've got eyes here, eyes there.
First corner kick of the second half for the Pride. LaBe's coming for it, and nobody there to challenge for Orlando. Williams had it taken away. Lourdes has been impressive.
Absolutely, her work ethic on both sides of the ball.
This could be trouble, though. Malay looking for Dabinia. Somehow, the acrobatics of Ashlyn Harris kept that out of the goal.
How this is not in the back of the net,
Oh my.
I do not know, but we've seen Ashlyn Harris do this time and time again, keep her team in the game with big-time saves. Lauren Malay is free on the sideline, combines with her other attacking midfielder, Dabinia. It's a beautiful ball in behind, weighted perfectly. All Dabinia has to do is tap it in. But Ashlyn Harris does such a good job of standing her ground, making herself big, and in the end, it's just a kick save to keep it out.
So much to like about that sequence. I mean, the ball from Malay, the run from Dabinia, and then that incredible acrobatic save from Harris.
And that is the one thing that we didn't see much of in the first half from North Carolina, and something that makes this North Carolina team so dangerous. The runs from Lauren Malay and Dabinia out of the midfield, it forces the back line for Orlando have to track players.
Here's Malay on the ball again. Uses her left foot. One of the players, Paul Riley, said he has been so impressed with in her growth just from last year to this year, Malay, making the most of the minutes she got in the Challenge Cup and now in the fall series.
And she does such a good job, Jen, of getting herself popping out wide right and creating from the wider areas as well. This isn't the first time we've seen her play one of those balls, just weighted perfectly. The timing of the run from Dabinia. You know the Brazilian international will want that opportunity back.
Steph Labbe on this end of the field for North Carolina. Canadian national team goalkeeper has made it known that she will opt out of the next 2 matches for North Carolina when they will have to travel. So the Courage most likely would look to Caitlin Rowlands in goal coming up here in this fall series. Former national champion out of UCLA has had a good number of minutes with the Courage. Malay, boy, had a good look at it.
And Malay finding some space out wide, gets her head up, sees the run from Dabinia. This whips it in behind the back line, but that save from Ashlyn Harris on the goal line, staying big, standing her ground.
And look, it's a combination of a couple of things there. It's incredible reaction for the first save, and then maybe a little bit of luck that you get the ball to bounce your way, but you put yourself in position to have that luck in terms of blocking the goal as best you can with your body. And so well done by Ashlyn Harris there.
It is those saves that have made Ashlyn Harris's career, the reactive saves, the saves that keep your team in the game that you need to continue to build confidence when things aren't going your way. We're seeing so far in the second half, North Carolina starting to get some momentum, finding themselves in better advanced positions. And that's what makes that save so important to keep this game tied at 0.
Marta finally gets a touch, but that's not where the Pride want her to have it. This looking better, though, as Krieger makes a run up the field. Allie Krieger, who sat on those 99 international appearances for so long, finally able to be called back into the U.S. national team in 2019 after 2 years without an appearance. And she came through, was a part of that World Cup championship team in France.
Jen, I had the opportunity for a lot of my career to be teammates with Allie Krieger. No surprise with her work ethic, her continue to focus on what mattered to her, to stay ready at any time, and it paid off. She came in and played an important role in that 2019 World Cup championship.
Stay ready. I mean, that had to be the theme over and over again for these Orlando players as you think about there they were 5 days away from playing their first match in the Challenge Cup, ready to go for that. Boom, they get word of these positive COVID tests, which after the fact were a lot of false positives there, but at the time the protocol dictated that they had to withdraw from the Challenge Cup, so you lose that chance to get back in competition. Then you have to find a way to stay ready despite all the restrictions around what you can and cannot do with training until finally getting ready to take this field here today. Nearly a year since the Orlando Pride had a competitive match.
That's the first time that we saw a big ball out of the back from Toni Presley. And now Orlando in a better position to keep possession, keep the ball, just by bypassing 3 lines of defense for North Carolina.
Nobody stepped initially to Marta. Eventually Dahlkemper got there and blocked the ball. Marta gets it back, edge of the box. Dances on top of the ball, gets her service through. There's a little bit of that Marta magic.
And we've been waiting for the craftiness of Marta to come out in this game. She gets herself free down the end line. Is so good in tight spaces. Dahlkemper doesn't step tight enough. And well done by LeBay to come out and snag that ball because Sid LaRue is on the far post to be able to put that away with her head.
Seems like we have had the pleasure of watching Marta for so long on the international stage. 17 goals in her World Cup career. That's the most of any player. And 6 times named the FIFA World Player of the Year. And you never forget, though, that Marta was this young girl growing up in Brazil who used to stuff wads of paper into her cleats because they were big, they were hand-me-down. That's all she had just to get out and play. And what an incredible ambassador she has been. Remember her impassioned plea at this last summer's World Cup, just begging for the future of Brazil to continue the good work that so many players like Marta and Cristiane and Debinha now have done to try to drive that club, that country forward. Cry now so you can smile later, right? It was pretty powerful. Sydney LaRue. North Carolina has been so dominant, Lori. Think about what they have done and their success since the club started in North Carolina in 2017. They've won 3 regular season shields, the last 2 NWSL championships, and now the audacity to tinker with that system, try to add new wrinkles. Malay took it off her foot a little too far, and Courtney Peterson jumped on it.
And that's a good example of Orlando's defense, just nullifying any opportunities, forcing them to run out of ideas, not enough movement in and around the box for North Carolina. But to your point, that's what you got to love about Paul Riley, always wanting to push himself, not only his team, but he said it's been a challenge for the coaching staff as well to learn this new formation, how to continue to find ways to break teams down. With new personnel, players that want to get on the ball, want to drive their team forward. And you can see there's been ebbs and flows in this game, but also last weekend as well, but still need to mature as a team as they continue to build forward.
And as the minutes tick away here, you remember that this Orlando Pride team have barely been able to train 11v11. They've had coaches step in, try to get any bodies that they can out on the field as they have had that long wait between games, 343 days. And you saw some subs warming up on the sideline. You imagine we'll see some soon. Both teams, all teams in the Challenge Cup are allowed 5 substitutions, or excuse me, the fall series, as they were in the Challenge Cup. Nice move by Lynn Williams. Gonna get herself a look off the post.
Yes!
Perhaps no player in this league creates chances better than Lynn Williams. Just couldn't finish that one off.
And creates chances out of nothing for herself. There's a lot of critique in terms of her not finishing the chances she gets, but a lot of players don't even create those chances for themselves. Splits 2 defenders, and the opts to go near post. Unlucky with that hitting off the near post.
Alinsky slips down. Missed that chance from Lynn Williams.
And reads this pressure well against Tony, uses her momentum to beat Tony Presley. And she gets her head up, sees that there might be a little window of space to beat Ashlyn Harris. In the end, Ashlyn Harris has it covered, plus it ricochets off the post. Well done by Lynn Williams, though, to start to get herself more involved in this game.
Peterson unable to keep that in. the rookie out of the University of Virginia, a player that Mark Skinner really excited about in terms of her growth, her future with this Orlando club. She was Orlando's top pick in the 2020 draft, number 7. Looks like Denisha Blackwood, one of 2 members of the Jamaican national team on Orlando's roster, making her way toward the scorer's table to check in. LaRue will stay with this. LaRue wanting to find Marta.
We're good. We're good. She's ready. 20 is coming on.
So Denisha Blackwood, 5'6" midfielder, 23 years old, out of Kingston, Jamaica, a member of Jamaica's first ever World Cup team in 2019. She'll replace Alinsky.
Thank you.
Blackwood played collegiately at Navarro College. It was a junior college, 2-time junior college All-American, and then at West Florida. Another one of those players on a short-term contract looking to make an impact in her time in this fall series. Blackwood, welcome to the match. Welcome to the NWSL. How about a corner?
And both teams, Jen, right now, just giving the ball away too easily. Once they win it, can they connect the first passes? This corner kick starts because there's 2 giveaways back-to-back that leads to Blackwood being able to get in line.
Carrie Lawrence. Ready to take this corner for the Pride. Marta the target, trying to make her case that it should stay with Orlando. You could see Marta and Dabinia, 2 Brazilian national team teammates, chatting there.
North Carolina Courage substitution in the 66th minute of play.
Danica Evans now coming on for the Courage. She started the last match, and this is a player who spent some time with the Orlando Pride last year, 3 starts and 9 appearances for the Pride, and is signed to a short-term contract with the Courage. Didn't get much of the ball last week against Houston. We'll see if she sees a little more of it this time around coming off the bench.
Keep her wide! Keep her wide!
Williams does not get wide. She comes central, and that is going to draw the ire of Ashlyn Harris. You could hear exactly where she wanted her defense to try to push Williams.
And it's such smart vocal leadership to tell Carrie Lawrence to keep Lynn Williams wide, because we know she wants to cut into her favorite right foot. And when you do, she can unleash a shot, gets a hold of that one, sends it over the crossbar. But in the end, force Lynn Williams wide. Don't allow her to cut inside and ultimately create an opportunity on frame. And those are the little details that are going to drive each of these teams forward, knowing the tendencies, knowing what players, what foot they want to be on and prefer.
Marta sees Blackwood. Blackwood cuts it back toward her right foot. Ryan Williams staying right there with her. That Brazilian connection across club lines. If only you could speak Portuguese. What's she saying? That was a nice shot you had there, Dabinia. I could have bent it a little more.
And Davina's saying, I know.
You're right.
And Jen, with this substitution of Danica Evans coming in for North Carolina, we saw her playing an out-and-out striker next to Lynn Williams last weekend. Looks like she will be playing in the attacking midfield role, but with the ability to get higher up the field quickly.
LaRue stayed composed, found Blackwood, across it goes! I believe that was Edmonds who came flying through, just couldn't get her head on it. The rookie Merrick taking control for North Carolina.
And Blackwood occupying some good space out wide. That's making her effective, sending some balls across the goal line. Edmonds couldn't believe that she couldn't make contact.
Recaro touches it out to Evans. Evans just looking a bit unsure on the ball. Giveaway back to Recaro. She'll take it. Not where she wanted it, though. Carrie Recaro, former Notre Dame product. Here comes Riley Baston, one of the players we talked about earlier, who played 11 minutes last week against the Houston Dash, but in that time set up Lynn Williams for the game-tying goal in the 83rd minute. Those two go back to their collegiate days at Pepperdine, where they were teammates, roommates. Baston getting a chance to get a little more time this time around. Baston replacing Speck on the field for the Courage. Ryan Williams right there to greet Venetia Blackwood when she received that ball. Perea, not much on that. Krieger controls it out to Edmonds. Edmonds on that far side now, switching over once Blackwood subbed into the game. Vigiano. Marta steps over the ball. Didn't quite work that time around. That won't stop Marta from trying. As Danica Evans able to take it away. Marta. Up to LaRue. Can that connection come through for Orlando? A chance, and it's not gonna find it. But the setup there, a good one, and Lawrence disappointed she wasn't able to finish it off.
Oh, and what an opportunity for the Orlando Pride. And this is something that Sid LaRue does not get enough credit for, her ability to hold up play, allow for others to get into the mix, and then this no-look ball from Marta just bends it in behind, and that is a good late run from Lawrence. She should have taken it with her head to keep it on frame, but instead slides, gets underneath it, and that ricochets, unfortunately, off the crossbar, loses her mark in the box. Too easy from North Carolina. But well done for Orlando Pride. You've got to imagine they're starting to feel more and more confident keeping this North Carolina team that has been so deadly in the attack for so long, 0-0 all the way into the 72nd minute.
Yeah, this is a North Carolina team, and granted, obviously we understand there are a lot of different personnel right now, but they've set records in this league in terms of goal scoring over the years. Been the most prolific scoring team in the NWSL. Merrick, not on target. Addison Merrick having to get those stitches in her eyebrow after the collision last week against the Houston Dash, but a player that has stepped right in to this North Carolina club. She did so as a rookie with the full complement of players in the Challenge Cup, and her head coach at Kansas, Mark Francis, told me over the summer that the tougher the scenario, the better Addie is. She was not afraid at all to get in there. At least she didn't look like she was.
And not to mention only coming in and playing for North Carolina, a team that's so difficult to even get minutes on, but to start, but then also to do it at a Challenge Cup. We know the trials and tribulations of that tournament. So many games in such a short period of time, and tasked with playing Portland in their opening match. And the maturity that she showed just on both sides of the ball to continue to get the minutes and win that spot outright. And for someone that Paul Riley says, hey, even last game when she had to come off the field, she was the missing piece for them. What a high praise from Paul Riley, the coach of North Carolina, for the young player.
North Carolina, I think most would agree, through the preliminary rounds, the most dominant team in the Challenge Cup. They won all 4 of their matches, but then were ousted in the quarterfinals by Portland.
Just not good enough. The connections for North Carolina just aren't there. Not getting enough players around the ball. Too easy of giveaways in the end, and just not enough movement, creativity to unbalance Orlando. Especially this late in the game when we've seen them be so dangerous at bringing on fresh legs, players that continue to push the pace.
Lawrence, really one of the bright spots so far in this match for the Orlando Pride. Lawrence now up. That leaves a gap for Dabinia and the Courage. If they can exploit it, Lynn Williams will get onto this ball first. Williams against Krieger. Krieger doing her best to try to force Williams out. And the defense does its job.
And well done from Allie Krieger, U.S. International. Just a standard ground. Loses her footing at the end, but does well enough to get Lynn Williams off of balance, forces her to play back. And then the rest of the defense does its job, just standing its ground in the penalty spot, looking for the clearance. And definitely some things to clean up on Orlando's side, but 75 minutes holding North Carolina 0-0 after such a long layoff. You have to credit them for their team work ethic, the discipline defensively to stay tight as a unit and work together.
Ryan Williams could not get it through Blackwood. And Marta holding off Dahlkemper, wants to restart quickly.
And Marta was looking for the quick replay or the quick start, and I was hoping she would go for it. See if you can test North Carolina, see if they're ready for a quick restart, something they haven't had to face against Orlando so far in this game.
One of the strengths of Toni Presley, great long delivery. We'll see what she can set up here for Orlando.
Jen, I say that about the quick restart, but I also haven't had a year layoff either. I think I would set the ball down as well. Slow things down.
Marta onto it here. And that's top of the net. That will take us a little bit closer to the second hydration break. Expect that coming, and here it is. "60 Minutes" coming back to CBS on Sunday. They are the defending national football champs, but how is LSU defending against COVID? Plus, are mail-in ballots safe? 60 Minutes, the season premiere tomorrow on CBS. Well, the Orlando Pride missing out on the Challenge Cup. We obviously saw so many strong statements from the players of the NWSL speaking out and showing their support for the victims of social injustice, Black Lives Matter, and both teams wearing warm-ups today, either with names of victims of social injustice or simply saying, say their names.
And Jen, we're told this was player-driven, and we saw in the Challenge Cup back in July, so many different teams using their platform to speak out about racial injustice, and just a good look at Mark Skinner, the head coach, also getting involved as well, and how much this means to this Orlando Pride team.
And looking back to the 2019 She Believes Cup, the names on the back of the jerseys that day for the United States women's national team, women who inspire them. Becky Sauerbrunn wearing the name of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I think so many of us just mourning the loss of the Supreme Court Justice who passed away yesterday. That was the letter that Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote to Becky Sauerbrunn, thanking her for that honor of putting her name on the back of her jersey. And so long, Justice Ginsburg, someone who stood up for women's rights, and she will certainly be missed. Perea for North Carolina, quickly back in the attack after that hydration break. Shot up and over. A lot of pace there, though. Courage coming out firing. That's Baisden. Had an assist in her NWSL debut last week. Wonderful story here. Kate Howarth, the player who will be replacing Kristen Edmonds. And Howarth, 5'6", just 29 years old, played at the University of Miami. But what was she doing earlier this year, Lori? She was an EMS director for the Norfolk, Massachusetts Fire Department, and she's also a firefighter. So on the front lines of COVID, and asked her department, hey, I still want to keep this little dream I have alive of playing in the NWSL, so if I get that chance, will you support it? Here she is. Marta wanting to set up Blackwood, perhaps hoping a handball call for a foul, but nothing doing. Dabinia ready to run with Williams. And Williams, oh, it snakes through. Did it go over? It got through the hands of Harris, but the entire ball does have to cross that line for it to be a goal.
And wow, as it stands right now, that seemed to be extremely close, Jen. Uncharacteristic mistake potentially from Ashlyn Harris if that did slide through her hands in the end.
Blackwood, the fresher legs chasing after that ball. It's cleared out. Under 10 minutes to play. No fall series match has gone scoreless so far. And Dabinia still down for North Carolina after that slide tackle. Back to her feet now as the Pride continue in their attack. Vigiano getting it forward to Howarth. Will take her shot, but LaBay an easy grab. You see some space opening up now, Lori, some tired legs. Who can take advantage? North Carolina nearly did a moment ago. Wide open is Danica Evans. Perea. Marta is trying to hold off Evans, former teammate with the Pride. I do believe some fatigue could be settling in here with some players, Lori.
And not only Orlando, but both teams.
Recaro with a chance. Presley knocks it out of bounds. It'll be a corner.
And it's the Lynn Williams-Dabinia combination that sets her through. And yes, this in the end, well done by Carrie Lawrence. Just the understanding of where this ball is. And she does keep it out. Again, uncharacteristic by Ashlyn Harris to let that one slide through. But Carrie Lawrence with a really fantastic performance today on both sides of the ball.
Look, players are fighting for their spots right now, Lori. I mean, these players, especially those who are signed to short-term contracts, names you maybe don't know yet, are fighting to say, hey, you need to keep me here in the NWSL. You need to protect me when that expansion draft comes. And Lauren's making a name for herself.
She certainly is. I mean, on both sides, her ability to get up and down the right side of the field.
That sub that just happened, Haley Harbison, another Pepperdine player, onto the field. That makes 3 for North Carolina. She replaced Ryan Williams. Harbison, based in Lynn Williams, all Pepperdine alums. Now this is dangerous territory, especially with Dabinia. Dabinia headed up, and a whistle anyway, as there's some contact with Harris. Offside against the Courage.
Good. And well done by Orlando Pride to hold their ground.
The NWSL partnering with Rally the Vote to spread the message about the importance of voting in this critical election year. 1 in 5 Americans are not registered to vote, so be sure to make your voice heard. Register and make your plan to vote this November. This is Harbison, who just came in, hounded by 2 Orlando defenders. It'll stay with the Courage. Haley Harbison, 23 years old, in her 2nd year with the Courage, but tore her ACL, missed all of last season. Header from Lynn Williams will dribble its way toward Harris. Orlando just holding strong against this North Carolina team that has had the Pride's number. North Carolina has won 6 in a row against the Pride. Orlando just 1 goal the last 5. That trend has continued as they've had difficulty scoring, but they've kept North Carolina from scoring so far here today too.
And this is where Orlando needs to be smart in their decision making. We've seen North Carolina time and time again score late goals. They're dangerous, putting teams under pressure late in games. Get the ball out, alleviate pressure when needed. And then once you do, keep possession, be smart with it.
Merrick bravely putting her head down toward that ball. She continues forward for North Carolina. And do not assume anything is decided yet. If this fall series has taught us anything, it's to be ready for late goals. 2 stoppage time goals so far. North Carolina scoring late last week to win in the 86th minute. Lynn Williams had the game tying goal against Houston in the 83rd minute last week. She's had a couple of looks today.
Pride sub at the 87th minute of play, stepping out of the game number 19, Jordan Listro, coming in at 31 at Chelsea, Washington.
Jordan Listro will make her way to the side to be replaced by Chelsea Washington, player who Mark Skinner was contemplating between Washington or Listro getting the start today. So Washington now, a rookie out of Bowling Green State University, making her NWSL debut for these last few minutes.
And Washington, Jen, more of a holding player, defensive player. I imagine that Mark Skinner not only wants to get her some minutes, but also lock things down defensively, not give any easy chances away, especially with the numbers that North Carolina is throwing forward late in this game.
We've had some close calls. Both teams have hit the woodwork. Had that one ball that dribbled behind Ashlyn Harris, cleared off the line by Lawrence. Howarth had it taken away by Merrick. Why she is a competitor. You can just see that in the way Merrick plays. Dabinia, too much to set up Williams.
And the biggest difference that I'm seeing from this North Carolina playing in this 3-back that we're accustomed to with the box midfield that's been so dangerous, Jen, is just they haven't been able to create the width to unbalance opposing teams' defenses. Everything has been central. It's made it predictable. And with having so many numbers within the box formation that they have employed, it's allowed, though, for their wingbacks to get forward, get into the attack, create numbers overload, but also create the width. And we just haven't seen that in terms of the timing of the runs or just even anybody occupying that space.
Dabinia coming off her first ever 2-goal NWSL game. A lot of contact there. Worthy of a whistle, you think, Lori, or was that the right call on first glance, just to let it play?
On first glance, the right call. Not enough in it. Both teams, both players battling for position. Especially this late in the game, it's got to be a clear and obvious pull down in the box.
Dabinia trying to press. Is anybody up there with her? About 30 seconds and stoppage time remaining in this match. There will always be some stoppage time with those hydration breaks. Lawrence toward Blackwood. LaRue. Kind of an awkward ball for North Carolina to clear. Dabinia comes to get it for North Carolina. Sends Lynn Williams on the run. Harris out to greet her. Dabinia. Well, that time her Brazilian teammate is going to get whistled for the foul.
And initially well read by Ashlyn Harris. Typically, we don't see goalkeepers being brave enough to come off their line to deny Lynn Williams, but the Dabinia just showing her class through the legs of her Brazilian teammate. And then Marta has no other option. She was beat on that play.
So the Courage can set up this free kick. Nice moment there between the two international teammates. 4 minutes of stoppage time. Is this a pivotal moment? North Carolina was ready. Our referee was not. Interesting, though. 4 different players around the ball. Dahlkemper touches it to the wall, gets it back to Dabinia. She's trying to set up her teammates in the air. Williams lurking around that back post. Marta could not get around those 3 Courage defenders. Dabinia had it blocked. Harbison. Too much time being given to these Courage players. You can hear the plea of Ashlyn Harris to step to the ball. Marta fouled by Perea.
And Marta does a good job of just reading where the pressure is coming from, spinning out, trying to go out the other way. But those are the moments when Orlando Pride, putting themselves under pressure, just alleviate pressure, get the ball out. You don't need to keep possession at those moments, because with the pressure that North Carolina likes to employ, they'll be right back down in your attacking half.
LaRue could not win that ball for Orlando. Williams does manage to get herself free and back onto the ball here. Lynn Williams in the box. Right in the center where Presley was waiting for it. Dahlkemper. Not where she wanted to put that ball.
And the frustration on Dahlkemper's face sums up North Carolina throughout this game in the attacking half. Just not clinical enough, can't get opportunities on frame, misplaced passes, just the connection outside of a few opportunities hasn't been there.
Seven goals in our match last week. None this week, so it goes sometimes as teams are figuring a lot of things out in this fall series.
And that's the key, Jen. I mean, both of these teams, such a work in progress. Similar formation for North Carolina, but some tweaks. So it's still going to take time. We're just so accustomed to seeing North Carolina be so dominant. For them not to get on the scoreboard late in this game so far is unusual.
But Orlando does get the shutout, as do the Courage. They'll each take a point in terms of the Verizon Community Shield standings. So 0-0 our final score from Cary. We'll be back to wrap things up after the break. We end the way we started, zeros on the scoreboard between North Carolina and Orlando in this first appearance of 2024, the Orlando Pride. Next week, we'll head back to the Northeast Pod in the NWSL Fall Series with Washington and Chicago. That one coming your way at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS next Saturday. For Lori and Marissa, I'm Jen Hildreth. For NWSL highlights and analysis, go to CBS Sports HQ. This has been a presentation of CBS Sports and the NWSL.